I want to thank Era 4 for being some of the most boring cast members that have ever been cast in the history of the show, so that it allowed me to be a standout amongst them in this past decade.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV. Now, let the buzz begin.
Benny Adams is back again with another episode of MTV's The Challenge Weekly. I got a challenge beast, a beast among beasts, Mr. Paulie. How's it going, bro?
Oh, it's good, man. Hey, we might have to, avoid from saying that after my last two showings, but the beast will be back.
Oh, do you know what? It will talk about this. You can still have that beast label because you've earned it. You've done multiple challenges. You've proven yourself. Everyone has their hiccup moments.
You know what? I'll take that. I'll use that. I just had a couple hiccup moments.
Exactly. So it's so funny. So for the people who are actually watching, and Polly, I don't know if you remember this or not, but we've talked before, like years ago, and I call it the interview that never aired. And it was my fault, and I to this day I still punch myself about it because it was such a good interview. So I'm glad you're back here. We get to talk again and just have another good interview, man, because you're so fun to talk to.
Yeah, listen. We'll always have a good interview. Now, honestly, I remember having the interview with you, but I forget what I even said. But
Yeah, yeah, it was
maybe,
good. I was like, damn, like how did that happen? But like,
maybe we'll release it later. A little
hey,
BTS, a
who
little
knows?
BTS in a year or so.
So you're back on the show. You took you said a 4 year break. Were you expecting, because I know you did USA before you did the
Mhm.
flagship. What were your thoughts when you got that call to be on season 40, such a historic show or a historic season?
I mean, I was just very grateful. A lot of the times you question whether you've done enough on the shows that you've done to be an impactful persona and player. And I guess getting the call for 40 just made me realize, okay, yeah, you could still take a 4 year break and still in the time that you were there have made a big enough impact to be considered one of the most impactful players of your era. Which is era 4, which I also think says a lot about era 4 and how boring they've been for the past 4 years. So I want to thank Era 4 for being some of the most boring cast members that have ever been cast in the history of the show, so that it allowed me to be a standout amongst them in this past decade.
Big shots, Polly. Big shots. I love it, man. Well, that leads me to my next question. What do you think about this season so far? Like, how's it going for you?
As I'm watching back this season, because I do recaps of it every episode. I'm kind of left. I'd be lying if I said wanting, because I just see so many things that I could have brought to the table, from a competitive standpoint, from a strategic standpoint, from a show standpoint. I really feel like if I would have just gotten past that era's invitational, I would have been sitting pretty good. And I would have been cruising. And once it turned into individual, I think I would have been cruising it even more. Because it seems like as the show went on, giving the conditions of just Vietnam, it seems like a lot of people were checking out. And a lot of people were just kind of like lasting until it was time to go home. And they weren't really, there's a couple people that were locked in, right? Like Jordan's always going to be locked in, right? It seems like Bananas is kind of like locking himself in. Seems like Rachel has locked herself um, in that regard. So I feel like that's where I benefit is the longer seasons go on, I get more mentally locked in and disciplined. Whereas a lot of other people, they get mentally weaker. And that's what I'm just seeing as a whole, like watching this season is there's a lot of people as it's going on, they're getting mentally weaker. It seems like Bananas is carrying the whole show on his back from an entertainment standpoint. It seems like once again, my biggest criticism about people who come on this show is they come on the show whether they're new or whether they've taken long periods of time off and they're coming back and making their debut after X amount of time back. They come back and they're just boring. They try and play this game behind the scenes underneath the radar because it's like, oh, I'm coming back. I want to make it to a final and win. And while that's all good and all, what are they going to remember from you from this season? People still to this day talk about episodes 1 and 2 with me going at Theo. And it's like, has Theo even been on the season since episode 1 and 2? Like, that's my case in point right there. It's like, Theo, dude, do you need me for storyline, buddy? Because where have you been? Where have you been? Where's everybody been? Like, Bananas got activated and everybody else is just kind of like, we're still going to kind of play under the radar thing. And it's like, nobody's going to remember you guys. This is an epic season. This is your moment to like make yourself like a staple known name. And, you're doing what majority of the people do when they come on nowadays is not ruffle any feathers and be boring.
Yeah, yeah. And you brought up so many points I want to talk about. One point is and correct me if I'm wrong, War of the Worlds 2, you made it to the final. You played, people still talk about this to this day. You played such an epic game. And one thing that I remember that I respect so much is that everyone that was with, or at least almost everyone that was in your alliance, you brought them with you to that final. And this is why I wanted to see you like make it so far in season 40. If you were still on season 40, what would have been your game plan? Who would be the people you would have aligned yourself with to make it to the final?
Honestly, I had a this is why I'm like very upset that I did go home at the time that I did. Because even though I was there for a short period of time, I already had my hooks in on a lot of people. And there was full intention on coming back from that elimination and absolutely lighting the house on fire and the season on its head and doing it in a similar fashion that I did on War of the Worlds 2, where regardless of whether people thought that it was like, oh, okay, we know he has control of the game, he's doing it, I still made it entertaining every week. There was a blow up every single week, whether I was causing somebody to blow up or whether like they were just blowing up from their own frustration of the game. And that would have been it. I mean, I'm not gonna give away who I would have been working with, just because there will be time for me to work with them. But I can tell you that a lot of people who maybe were behind having whispers of Cara and I going into the first elimination, since this is the first time we've been back together on a season in 4 years. It would have been an absolute nightmare to live in that house with me for everybody in that house, because everybody could have gotten some of the heat. And I would have made sure that it was a nightmare. Like, as terrible as the conditions were from the heat and the climate, and people were going nuts because, I personally like those conditions. Like when other people are complaining about the house and complaining about the bathrooms and complaining about the food, I'm like, this makes me so excited because they're already mentally checking themselves out of the game. And I would have just had a field day with it, like every day.
What's the house like, and because like from a viewer standpoint, I'm like, these guys haven't made, like they're in this huge like mansion. From the food I see them eating, it looks like it's catered. Like what is all that like?
That's what I'm saying. I personally thought that the house setup was amazing. We had our own individual beds. There were no bunk beds. You know what I mean? Like, you could have your own individual shower if you wanted to. Catered meals and all that stuff. Like, to me, it seems like there's a lot of people who maybe took off for a long time and are used to living in their own homes And they don't understand that when you're signing up for this show, you're not signing up to go on vacation. You're signing up to go to war. And like that's my thing is I feel like there's a lot of people who want to try and make this show into a vacation, and I'm trying to make this show into an all-out war, because that to me is what it is. It's an all-out war, psychological, physical, all that stuff. So if you're there to go on vacation and you expect to have a Tempur-Pedic mattress and you expect to have like the best lighting in the world in order to do your, face routine at night and in the morning and put your makeup on, like maybe this show isn't for you. Like maybe you should go somewhere else. Maybe you should go on Love Island. Maybe you should go on I don't even know, one of those other shows where they take into account the lighting because you have to be done up all the time. Like don't come on to the challenge. I actually don't want people on the challenge who are there to just be annoying.
Oh man. All right. So that's fair. That's fair. You mentioned Theo earlier. What's that relationship like now between you guys? Are you guys still rivals? Have you guys found like a middle ground between each other? Like what's that all about now?
I mean, Theo and I are, we're athletes, so we're going to respect each other off the field and everything. Like we can be very cordial with each other. We like each other, right? Don't get it twisted. Me and Theo like each other, but it's just the business that has to be done in the game, right? Like I'm pretty sure Tom Brady and Ray Lewis have respect for each other off the field and they liked each other. But when the Ravens played the Patriots, Ray Lewis wanted to crush Tom Brady's bones, and Tom Brady wanted to score as much touchdowns on Ray Lewis and his defense as possible. So that's kind of where my head's at with Theo. Is it's all good, like off the show, and it's all we're cool. But listen, at the end of the day, like he beat me in something that he was very well prepared for. He had a great strategy. Yeah, physics played into it a little bit, but I think he ultimately had a much better strategy than I did. But that doesn't mean I'm gonna like let off. Like there's two types of people in this world. There's people who get knocked out and say, I don't ever want to fight that guy again. And then there's people who get knocked out and say, I got to go knock that motherfucker out. So I'm the latter of the two where he beat me in my head. I'm like, all right, yeah, that sucked. But now I'm going to train even harder and I'm going to come back even stronger. And since he took 4 years patiently waiting to hunt me down, I'm not going to sit here and wait 4 years to hunt him down. I'm going to hunt him down immediately. And that's just how it's going to go down. You know what I mean? If I was ready for peace, and if you want to hunt me down after 4 years when I was ready for peace, well, now the war is back on.
Well, and that's something that I think is really cool about you because it seems like you can separate the game from your personal life. And like when you go into the game, all hands on deck. Personal life, hey bro, good game. Let's be chill again. I like that. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been that way, right? Like now, granted, if you come to me outside of the game when I'm trying to be, hey, the game is the game and it's separate, and you're still trying to like be butthurt about the game, yeah, I will turn it back on you outside of the game, or at least I used to. But like now, I really can't be bothered. Like I used to let it, like when people would come to me and they'd still be butthurt about the game, I used to kind of get back into game mode and be like, well, yeah, go fuck yourself. You know what I mean? But now it's kind of like if you come to me outside of a game and are like, yeah, I don't like what you did in the game, I'd be like, well, I don't know what to tell you because the game's over and we're in real life now. So I'm on vacation now. But if you would like to take it back up with me, you can take it back up with me on the next season because I'm on vacation now. So Paulie cannot come to the phone right now. But if you wanna leave a message, I'll get back to you when we're playing again.
Pretty much a sorry, not sorry. I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
sorry, not sorry. We'll talk about it when we talk about it.
So there's been this one thing I've noticed. There's been like this debate on, what separates an OG player from a new school player. And so you're technically a new school player, even though you've been on this for a while. You're technically still a new school player. What do you think separates a new school player from an OG player?
don't know. I mean, I relate more to OG players than I do the new players. Although I will say, the line is getting blurred as to what actually separates them, if that makes sense, right? Like it used to be the way they played, right? OG players used to say it with their chest, and they used to not back down, and they used to talk their shit, and they used to strategically be superior in the game. But and the new school players, like they just kind of hide behind numbers. They're not really trying to ruffle any feathers. But it seems like it's all meshing together, right? Like you don't see the OG players getting messy anymore, right? You don't see them getting into fights. You don't see them getting into arguments. You don't see them playing this cutthroat style game. It's almost like they're in there playing the exact same way that the new school players are playing, where it's like, let me just lay low and maybe I could just float my way as long as possible, right? I mean, to the guy's credit, Bananas is probably the only one that still stirs shit up in terms of that. Not to say that like the OG players still don't have it in the eliminations to a certain extent. There are exceptions to the rule, but for as much as they say that they're so different, as of recent, I don't see it. I don't see how they're different. And it seems like they always just refer back to like what they used to do and what they used to be. It's like, yeah, you used to get in motherfuckers' faces 10, 15, 20 years ago, but you're not doing it right now. Yeah, you used to be very cutthroat in your gameplay 10, 15, 20 years ago, but not right now. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I'm getting tired. First of all, I'm fed up with the new school players. I think that they haven't been properly welcomed to the show, like the way I was welcomed to the show. Like, absolutely get the hell out of here. You don't belong here. I feel like they've come in at a point in time where their ass kissing works. And I don't like that. Like, I don't like that they could come in and be ass kissers. And I don't like the fact that the old people allow them to be ass kissers. You know what I mean? So I got my gripes with the new school, and I got my gripes with the old school. My gripes with the old school is, what the hell happened to y'all? And my gripes with the new school is, I'm tired of you guys being ass kissers. Like I'm kind of bored with it. I'm over it. Actually,
When we first came onto the challenge, it was a very interesting time because that was when MTV started incorporating other shows other than, because first it was Are You the One, and then they started incorporating Big Brother and all these other reality shows. Was the challenge on your radar when doing Big Brother or after doing Big Brother? Was that something that you were like, oh man, I gotta do the challenge?
no, because I was one of the first ones.
Right.
Like when you did these shows, when I did the show, there was no like when the challenge called me after Big Brother, I was like, oh crap, I can get called to go. Like I was supposed to be on Vendettas. I was supposed to be the first crossover there. So like that's another thing where it's like when I watch Big Brother now, I see these assholes on there talking on the live feeds, being like, "Oh, I really want to do the challenge, like do it," and like they're trying to like plead their case to be on the challenge. I'm telling you right now, if you're a Big Brother person that has gone on the show and you have hyped up how you want to get on the challenge and you come there, I will be the first one to throw you into an elimination because fuck you. Like I didn't, me and Devon and Jose, Natalie, we could say Victor, but he was such a flop on the show that he doesn't even count. We didn't know that it was possible to get the call. So like when we went and played Big Brother, we authentically played Big Brother, and those personalities are exactly what you saw. You know what I mean? And then the challenge was like, we kind of like that. We want that over here because they remind us like of challengers, right? Like in terms of like this, only they might have a little bit of a different gameplay. These people now going on in Big Brother, it's like, and any other show, it's almost like they're going in there trying to like prop themselves up with these fake personas to be like, maybe I'll get cast on the challenge. And then they get cast on the challenge and they're boring as hell because it's a fake persona. You know what I mean? Like they're not actually there to cause chaos. They're just like, they're almost like lying on the resume. Right. So like, that's why the second that people start like even from this past season, I think that fucking Quinn guy was like sitting there being like, "Oh, I think I'll be on the challenge." It's like, bro, you would get eaten up and fucking spit out alive. Like Allison Grodner 2.0, you would get eaten up and spit out alive, my guy. Like, please do not be that person that goes on Big Brother and starts talking about the challenge. We don't
Wait,
want you. We don't want you.
you said you were meant to be on Vendettas. What happened with that?
I ended up blowing out my ankle the night before I was supposed to fly out. So they had to replace me.
Who was gonna be your Vendetta?
Natalie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's pretty cool. And yeah, that's really interesting that you talk about that you talked about the people on these reality shows saying like, "Oh, I want to be on," because I've seen it too, and I find that so interesting. Like I see when I was watching Big Brothers, and I would watch like clips from the live feeds. I would hear certain people say, "Man, I want to be on the challenge." Do you think people are now doing these reality shows in order to get on the challenge? Because the challenge it's become a huge phenomenon. Like it's been on for years. Do you think that could be a reason for some, not all, but for some people that go on like Big Brother, Love Island, Bachelor, Bachelorette?
Yeah, I do think so. I think that I think that they do it for the idea of getting it. And I understand that, but I think it takes away from who you are, right? Like if you're going to get on the show, it should be because your personality gets you on the show and your authentic character gets you on the show. Not like this thing that you're putting on in hopes to do this. 90% of the people who say they want to go on the challenge when they go to these shows, it's like you're boring. You're bringing us nothing already. What makes you think you could be on this show? You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I get that. I get that.
Like that's what does it for me. And it's um like I would prefer the people who are a little bit unhinged, you know, because like at least you know that if something happens and they don't like a decision that somebody makes, they're going to respond naturally, authentically. They're not going to sit there and put on a smile and be like, "Oh no, I totally understand why you're throwing me into an elimination. Like, I wish you all the best." And then it's like they go to their confessionals and they're like confessional gangsters where it's like, "I'm actually not okay that they threw me in. I'm actually pissed." It's like, well, then say something right then and there. You know what I mean? That's what gets frustrating for me.
Yeah, yeah, I feel that. I feel that. So you said you're on a 4-year break from the challenge. What were you doing on that 4-year break when people were missing you so bad on the show?
Well, let's see. I tried out for the Olympics for bobsled. I built a talent agency, an events company, and a production company. And that's all I've really been doing since I've been off the show. So I still do that to this day. Do about 10 events a year. Try to film 2 to 3 projects a year. And yeah, represent close to 50 pieces of talent.
That's awesome, man. I didn't even know that. That's really cool. Good for you.
Thanks.
I was on
Appreciate it.
I was on your Instagram page and I saw something with boxing. Are you doing something with boxing also?
So yeah, that's part of the events that I do. So I do boxing events where I set up the boxing events, do the matchmaking, host the event, and everything.
What do you want your fans to know about everything?
Honestly, just where I'm at now is I have been, I would say, for the past 4 or 5 months since I lost, I have been relentless on a journey. I've been relentless on a journey every single day. I feel as though the past 2 times I've went on the challenge, I've just relied on the fact that like going into the show, I would already be in better shape than most of the people there. And then while I was there, I would get in better shape than everybody there. Whereas for my first 3 seasons, I went into the seasons like either being in the best shape or being in top 3 best shape. These past 2 times around have been so busy with this stuff for work that almost my preparation for the challenge became it was put on the back burner. Um, and this time around, everything else is on the back burner, and my training and my preparation for the challenge is at the forefront. So I am ready to take people's heads off. Let's
And
just say that,
I
especially after season 40, that one left a very, 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 very sour taste in my mouth. Um, and I want blood.
and Paulie, this is why we can't wait to see. I don't even have to ask you, do you want to come back for 41? Like I know you want to come back, and we can't wait to see you back on future challenges. Final question though. Advice for future reality stars who want to be on the challenge. What advice would you give them?
The advice I would give them is to don't come on this show to be an ass kisser. You know what I mean? Like the second that you come on this show and you start kissing ass, I immediately know that you're trying to run a Big Brother Survivor game, and I don't trust you. And none of the other challengers trust you either. You're just a pawn. Um, you know, Come on this show to make a name for yourself. Don't be a background character, right? There's a reason why I was able to come back after taking 4 years off. It's because in the 3 seasons that I was on, I was not a background character. I was the main character, right? So if you want to come on and you want to be a background character, well, your future and your time on the show will be very short lived.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. If you
Because
want to be on the show,
the only background characters that have continuously gotten cast over and over again, which I have no idea how, is the Vacation Alliance. Okay.
oh man, all right. Ollie, thank you, man, for coming on. This was fun. I knew it would be a fun interview with you, dude. Thank you so much. You
No, I
guys,
appreciate you, man. And thank you for being patient with me. I've been crazy busy the past 2 months, man. So thank you.
oh, you're fine, dude. You're all good. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'm Benny Adams. You can find me on all social media at Benny J Adams. And Paulie, let everyone know where they can find you on social media.
You can find me at Paul Calafiore _ on everything.
Awesome. All right. I'll see you guys next week.